Water, earth, fire, air. Long ago, I didn't know anything about The Last Airbender. Then, everything changed when my best friend said, let's do a podcast. We could call it Avatar State Radio. 6,953 days had passed before I discovered Avatar. Not the Blue Cats, but a 19-year-old cartoon. Like Aang, I have a lot to learn, but I believe I'll love Avatar The Last Airbender. Welcome to this week's edition of Avatar State Radio. I am the last podbender, Kevin Gallagher, joined by
Mike. I have all the knowledge that those who watch the Avatar needs, and I am willing to dispense it here on this podcast.
It truly is. You know, we're I guess technically 13, maybe 14 episodes in if you count episode 0. And
we didn't watch episode 0, right?
What's that?
We didn't watch episode 0.
Was there an episode 0?
There is an episode. Oh, you're talking about on the podcast. Don't worry.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about, because there is an unofficial pilot that they replaced with episode 1.
No, we did talk about that very briefly in either our episode 0 or our pilot episode.
Right. Sorry, I was confused at what you were getting at.
No, but it really is aligned to where I am the Aang of this podcast, where I am just learning everything about Avatar and being an Avatar, and you are like the I guess like the Roku.
Yeah, I'm either the Roku or I'm the Uncle Iroh.
and either one. I know Roku's a good guy. We don't know officially. I mean, you know, but you have the knowledge.
I have all knowledge. I know all and see all.
But this week we are talking about episode 13, The Blue Spirit, which now I know there's obviously a continuity. There's obviously a story being told over the course of these 13 episodes. But there, other than like the recaps, there's not too many throwbacks. And if there are throwbacks, it seems like they're like major ones. Like, oh, this is a major plot point. What I really liked in this one is that it directly references the storm and Sokka and ultimately Katara being sick from it. And it's such like a tiny throwback to a previous episode that I don't think we've had something so tiny before.
Right. And we also kind of watch things out of order and stuff like that. So while we're recording for this episode today, we have already seen the episode that's going to follow this one. And I was kind of like, while I was watching the two, I was thinking, were these out of order originally? And was the rainy episode where Sokka got sick related to that episode as well? Now we'll be able to talk about it a little bit more, I guess, at the end of that episode. But there's rainy moments in that we can talk about. But I mean, I would imagine the storm itself kind of makes more sense.
Right.
And I mean, Katara doesn't need to necessarily have gotten sick because of the storm. She got sick from Sokka.
Right. But even before we get to that moment, we are opened with Zhao. Is that how you say his name?
Yep.
Nice.
Admiral Zhao now.
Yeah, he is promoted. The biggest I guess the Fire Lord is the biggest bad that we've met, but we've only seen him in a flashback, right? So
yeah, I don't believe that we have seen Ozai present day.
Right. And so and we've met plenty of Fire Nation people, most of them I'd say almost all, but maybe one. Well, not including that village, right, with like the old man, but like actual Fire Nation active warriors. All of them have been bad, save for maybe one. But this guy Zhao, he's the biggest bad that we've really met. Yeah, even though Zuko is like omnipresent throughout the series,
right, and very desperately wants to get Aang. And there's been a couple of close calls with Zuko as well.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And but the one thing's like Zuko has like redeeming qualities where, I mean, we've talked about it almost in every episode, especially the episodes where he's prominent, how like I'm so on the fence about this kid and whether he's actually bad or not. But there is no question with Zhao, right? Like he's
Oh yeah,
straight up.
Zhao has no. There's no. Well, I mean, anybody can be redeemed, so to speak.
Right.
Once upon a time, did it with the evil queen. Regina should not have been redeemed, considering all the things she did. But that's a different podcast that we've recorded.
Right.
No, but Zhao very much is kind of the more present danger in season one, because he's older, he's old enough to know better, and he's also at this point gotten many more resources given to him by Ozai.
Right. And quite honestly, like, and after like the last episode or two, we know why. Like, Ozai literally banished his son and wants nothing to do with him. And I firmly believe, likely, even if Zuko, no, damn it, Zuko was supposed
Zuko.
Zuko. It's funny that that's the one I'm messing up now.
I know.
Zuko, even if he is like captures the avatar, I don't believe like his father will, love him again.
No, I don't think so either. He might like begrudgingly let him back into like the family, so to speak. And he might like come to learn that he's a worthy heir. Because especially in royal families, that kind of thing is important. But I would assume that Ozai is such a hothead from what we've seen.
Right.
Like if you're willing to scar your own son, like you've got deep-seated problems that one thing is not going to fix.
Yeah. And this again, I will be eventually. I think we'll see the conclusion of that story between Zuko and Aang and the Fire Lord and all that. In the meantime, during this episode, we do get some shots of the prince. Though I do like how Aang leaves Appa and Momo in charge, which I don't have many notes about that, but we are thrown to that. I guess we'll call it the C story, right? Like the B story is that they're sick, but the C story is really like going back to that scene and Momo trying to bring Katara what she needs, which is water.
Right. The funny thing about like the sick scenes is they played them so well. Like you don't have to be like goofy delirious for that to work, but it really made it so much funnier. Like Katara is not exactly like funny when she's sick, but Sokka was bang on hilarious anytime he was sick. And it was hilarious as well that Momo was bringing things that like they wouldn't have a problem with otherwise. Like they're constantly broke. So
Right.
like all that stuff they could use to like facilitate travel and making sure that they have food and water and everything like that. Like it is really silly that Momo is as good as he is at getting random stuff.
Yeah, he's a poo. He is the not a poo. Yeah, the monkey from Aladdin. A boo.
You got Appa confused in there.
Yeah, I was going. I read an article about Simpsons today.
Man, it got all mixed up.
So I brought in all kinds of different things. There's actually, and it's not in this. This episode, as far as the animals are concerned, was Momo's episode. Next week, when we talk about episode 14, Appa has his moment. But we do. So when we do eventually get to the prince and Iroh and stuff, he is like the prince overly depressed about the situation. They're having a hard time, tracking Aang. They are at the point now where because Zhao has been promoted, like any information about the Avatar needs to be reported to him, and then like they're also blocking the waters from the Zuko's ships.
Right. And the only way for him to get redemption is to not team up with Zhao. Like, it needs to be his victory, not Zhao's. So, as close as he's been getting, Zhao is making that impossible now.
Right. Yeah. And actively working against the prince. Like, and I don't know that like his father is having him actively work against the prince. I think literally Zhao is just a dick.
Yeah, I agree.
And the other funny part of this episode is when Aang gets to like the medicine lady at the top of the mountain or whatever.
She was awesome, by the way.
What's that?
She was awesome, by the way.
Yes. What a fun little scene where he thinks she's making medicine and it's really just food.
Cat food.
Her cat. And then one of my favorite things, and I have a couple quotes from this episode, but this isn't really a quote. It's just suck on frogs. ...
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Advice that generally would be, don't do that.
Well, it sounds like an insult that happens. Like
yeah, go suck on a frog.
Right. That's what I heard. I have let me hit let's take a quick break because I hear my dog who is elderly. He's barking, I think, to get out of our family room. So hold on 1 second.
Mike and Kev are heading to Fan Expo Philadelphia, May 16th through the 18th. Mike is manning the Tellest and Weird Witch Wands table at A1205, while Kev will be hosting 3 panels this year. On Saturday, May 17th at noon, find Kev and the crew from Philly's own I Like to Movie, Dan, Steven, and Megan, as they celebrate everyone's favorite time travel movies at This Is Heavy, 40 Years of Back to the Future in Theater 4. A few hours later, at 5 p.m. at the Creators HQ, Kev will be hosting Go Birds, How a Fandom Unites a City, and Beyond, where he and his panelists will discuss the Go Birds mentality that goes far beyond the city of Philadelphia and even the current Super Bowl champions, the Philadelphia Eagles. On Sunday, May 18th at 1:15 p.m., the Get 'Em Next Year crew takes over the workshop room to discuss Heartbreak in Fandom, a universal love story that transcends sports and bleeds into the world of pop culture. If you're heading to Fan Expo Philadelphia this year, come say hi. Back to the show.
And I'm sure we had a wonderful word from our sponsor this week, whoever that may have been. But we're back now to continue our conversation about the Blue Spirit. Where did we leave off? We were talking about
suck on frogs, Kev.
Suck on frogs.
Suck on a frog, Kev.
It literally does. As soon as it was said, I was like, that is something like I'll bring it back to The Simpsons that Bart would say.
It's true.
And then instantly in that moment when he's like hunting these frozen frogs, which is wild that they have to be frozen. They can't be thawed out. And like, why are they frozen under this water? Because it doesn't look like it's a swamp.
Right. Yeah. There's really no reason. Like it must be a property that the frogs themselves have because the water is not frozen. You know, like, so yeah, there's got to be like something else going on. But in concert with the frog stuff going on, Zhao has been bringing up Colonel Shinu's like very, very talented archers who are brought into the mix around the same time that Aang is going after these frogs.
And ultimately, even there's some cool little like moments here where he's like, out maneuvering them, despite how good they are, holding his own while catching frogs.
Right.
But he ultimately gets caught.
And I was so ticked off, like watching it, like dude's got airbending skills. Why was he not using it as much as he could when he was like falling off the cliff and stuff? Oh,
so I was thinking the same thing there. Also with the water bending, because he can water bend, maybe not perfectly, but I mean, we saw him do it a little bit. He made the ice shield, but he definitely could have, he was in water catching frozen frogs. He could have been whipping them with water as well.
It very much seemed like he's as powerful as they need him to be in order to facilitate the plot. And in this case, this episode, it was like, it felt very much like, why isn't he doing X, Y, and Z?
Right. I would say, probably the only complaint of at least this far in the episode. But yeah, it was, I get it. They had to get him caught, right? And they did it. I guess you could explain it like he was worried about his friends and catching those damn frogs, which is why he was like,
yeah. Maybe there was a distraction. Maybe you could kind of pitch it that way.
Yeah. So I guess I could buy it. And then we see, the meeting. I don't know. Is it the official meeting of Zhao and the Avatar?
I feel like he had to have seen him before, right? Maybe he hasn't.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that he's just like known of him, and maybe was he there when like he went into Roku mode?
Yeah, actually, because remember he was in that tower.
He
showed up then. But you know what? This is the first time that he's talked to him at any great length, because he mentions like, oh, you were hiding for 100 years, and like doesn't really understand the context of it.
Right. Like, it's weird to me that like he's so casual about him hiding for 100 years because he is a kid.
Right. Yeah. Like you didn't put two and two together and you weren't surprised either. It's just, you know, and I suppose like at this point, like everybody in the world knows that Aang is a 12-year-old boy, like I'm sure like there's a little bit of whisper down the lane where it's like, oh, the Avatar. But we also had the old man fisherman last week who was giving Aang a hard time, even though he's 12 too. Yeah. Like there's definitely like, there's some confusion about how normal people I think would address it. I feel like everybody would be a little bit surprised.
Even if you've heard the stories, because, presumably it's been weeks since, if not months, since he's been unfrozen, but and probably even since like he activated those temples that like announced the Avatar's back.
Right.
But Zhao's giving him the business, taunting him. Aang uses some of his air bending from his lungs. It is still wild to me because the opening of this, maybe not the opening of this episode, but I think the opening of Zuko's moment, you see him like practicing with fire bending. And,
he's just going nuts on the bow of the ship.
Yeah, and it is still, the further deep we get into the show, how odd it is that the other three bending abilities really require the elements, whereas fire does not require the elements.
Yeah, he's just bringing it up out of nowhere.
Yeah, it is. And we've talked about it before. It's just I don't know. It's the further we get into it, the more obvious it is. And Zhao's plan,
Katara needed to get the little water skin.
Yeah, which I think is awesome. Like, I feel like it would be cooler if like Fire Nation warriors had like, even if it was just like flint and stone or something, like gloves or something to like create a spark, and then they can like control this element.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like it kind of makes sense. Like you got to figure like oxygen itself is kind of like a fuel for fire. So if all you're doing is combusting something, like, and that's the extent of the bending, like in theory, yeah, you could do it anywhere.
Yeah, it feels like
overpowered.
Like the other three need their elements in order to control them, and
you got to figure like air has no problem. Like you're never going to have that problem. Earth, it's going to be very, it's going to be a rare situation where you don't have Earth available to you. Right. Water is really the tough one.
Right. And you would think, you would think that fire would be the toughest, right? Because at least like water, let's say it's Earth properties, 70%, like there's still more water than Earth. So you still have a good chance of finding some sort of water, or if you really want to like play with the science, like you can pull water out of the air.
Right.
But fire, like it just feels like yes, you have that oxygen. And that's why I think if they had like these cool ass gloves with like flint and stone or something on them that created that spark and used oxygen as the fuel or whatever, that would
But like
be
I said, I think maybe the issue is not that you need the item to make the combustion for you. That's what they're doing. They're actually combusting as they're bending.
maybe. It's just it's not as cool as the other bending abilities I mean, it's obviously a very cool bending ability and very powerful, and as you said, might be over powerful, but I like the realism of the other three. And it's just becoming more and more evident as we see those three bending abilities used more and more and more.
Yeah. I mean, you got to figure like this is our introduction to the universe. Like we've only seen 13 episodes so far. So the other ones might kind of get into shape a little bit. Right. And especially like as we go like hundreds of years into the future with like other material,
right?
You know, whether that's Korra or like light novels and stuff like that.
So in that scene where Zhao's like kind of just being a dick to Aang, like we just ultimately find out like he's smart. He knows that if he kills Aang, then the Avatar will be reborn. So he's going to keep him alive. What's that?
The whole cycle will start again.
Yeah. So he knows like I'm going to keep you alive just enough so that we don't have to worry about that. And then and again, it cuts, you know, during one of the scenes where it cuts back to Katara and Sokka, it is, and where she literally says like, "Where are you, Aang?" What a crappy situation. Like you don't know that your friend is like captured and in danger. You think maybe did he abandon us? Especially Sokka, who's delirious.
I could see him abandoning them, but not permanently. Like I could see him being like, "Oh, I found something fun to do," because we've been brought to believe over the last 12 episodes that he does have the attention span of a 12-year-old boy. You know, like he is going to get distracted by things. There's a little bit of me that thinks like, hey, like trouble finds its way to Aang a lot, and Katara probably knows that. And she's very much like the motherly part of this team. So there probably was some legit concern as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's just like what a crappy situation. And Sokka's just delirious. So like he doesn't even know who Aang is anymore. He thinks his sister's a princess. It is just nonsense happening over there.
Yep.
And then we get this masked man who is, I guess that he's the blue spirit because like of that blue mask.
Yeah, because nobody like ever addressed him as the blue spirit. You know, like nobody I don't believe talks to him throughout the episode.
Yeah, I mean only Aang, and there's no response, which we'll find out. You know, we'll discuss why in a second here, but he like a very skilled person who like I had no idea who it was. The first time you watched this, did you have an inkling of who it was?
Oh yeah, I knew who it was.
Okay,
I feel like I did anyway. You figure at this point, you know, well, I won't say much. I felt like it had to be if they were going so. Kind of the way that like you knew like early on in one of the episodes like oh they were telegraphing like so easily what they were going to do with stuff. I felt like they were doing it here because why else would you not have your character speak? If it was a nobody who was brand new, you wouldn't have that like need for secrecy. So because they were being secret about it, as soon as you see a mask, you know, okay, somebody else that we've seen before is in that mask. Why wouldn't it be Zuko?
Yeah, see, now I definitely knew it was someone we had met before. I didn't really expect it to be Zuko, but it explains why. Like one of my first notes about him when he's in there is what an odd way to save Aang. Like just rushes the kid, and that should have been the clue, right? Like he doesn't care if he's going to scare Aang.
Yeah, doesn't care. And to be perfectly honest, like there's enough of Zuko in what we see of the blue spirit being like reckless, where like even if he nicked Aang or something, like, is it the worst thing? Like, yes, he needs the Avatar alive too, but like not in one piece.
But and even before we get the big reveal, we get so much like a very cool action scene that includes a line, my friends my friends need to suck on those frogs. But this after that, the scene, like, it's what an awesome action scene with them fighting side by side, really.
Right, yeah. To see them allied, even like temporarily, is a very cool thing in this season, because you don't really see them in any opportunity before this having a need to fight alongside each other.
Right, and at this point, we still don't know that it's Zuko. Like, we still just, you might know, but if you don't, you just, oh, this is random person saving Aang.
Right.
And
you know that they're a firebender at least.
Did he do fire?
Did he?
I don't think he did. I think he just used his swords.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense, because if you're trying to be secretive about it, you're not going to use your fire abilities.
I think they did a very good job for like concealing the identity by, using no red in the blue spirit costume.
Well, there was a reason for that too, and if you want, we'll quickly inject some trivia in there.
All right, hit that up.
The reason that they went for blue instead of red was because they thought that the red made him look too much like a kabuki Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
They said Korean Spider-Man. They said that he looked too much like that with the red.
That makes sense.
But I mean, to your point, like they did a very good job of throwing you off the trail, even if you had an inkling.
Right.
And furthermore, like we've thus far only seen Zuko use the fire abilities for the most part, right? Like, we've never really seen him go ape wild with swords.
I don't think so. And if we did, it was definitely a different type of sword and only a singular sword. Like, we never saw him fight like this.
Right. Now, I have like never mind. I keep getting into like the mode where I'm like going to hint towards things, and it's better if I don't. But yeah, I mean, in any case, he ended up using those swords as well, if not better, than he uses his fire abilities.
Yeah, for sure. Like, he was clearly a very skilled warrior even without the bending abilities. We get the cool moment of helicopter Aang, where he takes the broken spear and is using that with his airbending, kind of like because I guess he left his glider back at the cave because
of the weather.
Right. And then we also get the pole vaulting. My note is holy pole vault, Batman.
Right, with the ladders.
Yeah, which was again a very cool scene. And then we get like what a genius move by the blue spirit to instantly threaten Aang's life in order to get out of there, because he knows that he's too important.
As soon as Luscious Mouthful says, "Hey, we need him alive," well, that's my trick. I'm going to threaten his life, and they don't know who it is. They don't know how desperately he needs them alive too. So
right. So and it makes total sense. And I actually wonder if Zhao has an inkling of who it was in that moment, because it's what a great move and a great bluff that was not called until really, they were out in the open, and the archer was able to like skillfully shoot an arrow without killing the blue spirit, just knocking him out. And then Aang uses, his airbending to make, provide cover, realizes it's Zuko. And what a great little heart to heart. And it's really not even a heart to heart. It's just Aang kind of opening up his heart to Zuko. And, when he wakes up, they're in the middle of the woods. Aang could have left him behind. He knew it was Zuko and could have left him behind, but decided to save his life, and like tells him this story of his past about how he had one of his best friends was from the Fire Nation. Like, do you think things were different? We would be friends. And then, Zuko reacts the way I think you would expect him to with firebending.
Right, with just anger, straight up anger. Because, I mean, at this point, like, the idea of a friend being more important to you than your way back into your family, like, it's not even it's not even able to be something that he could compute.
Right. And so, and he doesn't chase him. Like, I think that there's, whether it's he's not able to because he just woke up from being knocked out, whether it's like Aang just opened up to him, whatever the reason might be, like Zuko could have chased him, could have burned down the forest to get to him, and chooses not to.
Yeah, was that a hint or not?
Yeah, I mean, Aang could have also like fought back, and he chose not to. That was probably more of a strategy because he knows that, like, hey, I've gotten away from him, 2 or 3 times now. Eventually, and he's going to outmaneuver me or outpower me because I'm just a 12-year-old kid who understands, a power and a half in bending, and so he just, it's an interesting scene, probably like a top 5 scene with Aang talking to Zuko there, and and
just remember, Zoo Corporation, Zuko.
Yeah. I don't know. It's when I look at the notes, I can usually nail it, but when I put my phone down, I blank on it.
So, and you definitely are like, you're big into like the emotional payoff, and that was definitely one of the more emotional scenes because it's slow, it's tapered. Like there is very much is there hope for these two to ever become friends?
Right.
Do you think that we ever get a moment like that again, an uneasy truce or something along those lines?
I think so. I think with a few more episodes left this season, plus two whole other seasons of this show that presumably all take place in this like span of time before the comic comes, 100%. You have to imagine that Zhao is a common enemy between these two. Maybe even the Fire Lord becomes a common enemy, based on what we know of, how Zuko got banished from his family by his own father. Like there's plenty of common enemies I think that they both have at this point that we will, I think, see them fight side by side again, 100%.
Right. And you know what? The show has like enough opportunities to create new dangers that even if it wasn't someone who like they commonly have, that doesn't mean that there's not a third party that could be trouble.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I look forward to it because I ultimately think that, it's either going to happen one more time and it's going to be the time that like Zuko realizes that like, I should be a good guy or whatever, he redeems himself, or it's going to be the rule of 3 and we'll see it happen, 2 more times. Ultimately, if we see it 2 more times, it's going to be because I think Zuko and Iroh maybe even like realize that the Fire Nation is bad. Right. And it's not okay what his father's doing.
Correct. Yeah, maybe that's the way that they go.
So, and the one last note I have on here is that it was an odd way to end this episode with, Aang gets back, shoves these frozen frogs into his friends' mouths, is clearly very dejected, lays down. He's exhausted, dejected, lays down on Appa's tail, and is clearly sad. And then it's, oh, this is tasty. And then the frogs thaw and it just ends on this comedy note, which felt, I get why it's a kid's show, but it felt weird to me after just dealing with all this emotion.
Yeah. I feel like because of what you mentioned, like that's why it didn't feel weird to me. Like, all right, they needed to end it on the positive note, because if it was just Aang, Aang did end on a sad note, but at least to the other two, they didn't get to experience what he did, so they have a moment of levity.
True. So, overall, really like this episode. This was one of those awesome, like, filler but not filler episodes. Like it built upon the story that we've been telling. It added to it. I don't know if it necessarily pushed anything forward. But I don't think every episode has to do that as long as you're building the story. So this was a very good episode. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I think most people will put that above like a 9 out of 10. So I think that a lot of people did enjoy that episode. And I think that it's one of the ones that kind of sticks in people's mind if you were going to say, like, what were the big episodes of season 1?
Right. Yeah, I can see that. I totally see that. Because if for nothing else is the fact that Zuko and Aang fought side by side.
Right. And the Blue Spirit mask becomes kind of like iconic when you think of it. Like,
well, it's totally such a cool little like persona that he can have for himself, or we see in a flashback or something along those lines.
Right. You ready for trivia?
Yeah, hit me with trivia.
All right. So near the end, when Zuko ends up back on the ship, and he, Iroh's like, "Where have you been?" And he's kind of like, "I don't know what you're talking about." Iroh is playing a sungi horn, and next to him is a small statue encrusted with red gemstones.
Yeah.
So those are items that they acquired from the pirates. So,
okay.
I already mentioned the Korean Spider-Man stuff. We didn't talk about it, but briefly, when the soldiers in the tower are reading the wanted poster, it says to be wary of him because he can create tornadoes and run faster than wind. Then 2 seconds before, 2 seconds later, we see just that happen.
Yeah. Which I forgot that he had like the flash powers too.
Yeah, he runs just like super fast. Because he's got the wind at his back pretty much. Let's see. That is pretty much it. But like I had said, the original title for the episode was The Red Spirit. But it really didn't make a lot of sense with the color scheme, so they called it the Blue Spirit instead.
Yeah, I'm glad it was the Blue Spirit, because not that there's anything wrong with the Red Spirit, but I think it's too on the nose. The Blue Spirit also sounds,
it rolls off the tongue a little better.
Yeah. And I think it's especially if this character, now I know that they don't have characters that are named like superheroes necessarily in this world, but that being said, it is a cool little like secret identity that Zuko could have if he chose to redeem himself.
Right. So yeah, and then still needs some secrecy.
Yes. Well, unless you have anything else, Mike, I think we're ready to signal down the old power stations here at the Avatar radio station.
Nope, I am all trivia'd out, and I'm pretty sure that we nailed most of the stuff in this episode.
In that case, you can find this show at avatarstateradio.com. There you will find literally a playlist of the episodes that we currently have released, and ways that you can find Mike and I, which for the most part, the best way you can find me is at That Nerdy Kev on most social media, or thatnerdykev.com.
Do you want me to say my stuff?
Yes.
So folks, you can see me usually if you go to tellus.com. That'll be a great place that'll lead you into the other directions that you can find me. But you can also find some of my premium stuff at patreon.com/tellus if you want to find cool battle maps and art from the Tellus universe. Or you can go to tellus.etsy.com to find physical stuff like more battle maps, our books, our art book, our tabletop game, stuff like that. And my wife's awesome one-of-a-kind handcrafted magic wands.
And with that all said, it's time to flip the lights off here at Avatar State Radio, and we'll catch you next time right here only on avatarstateradio.com.